Greetings, our viewers. I want to take this time to welcome you to our show today. As requested earlier, due to public demand, we have our guest another time. But then I want to assume there are a few others who are tuning to this and may not know our guest. I want to give him another time to officially introduce himself, and also let me take this time to welcome you to another time, and thank you for creating time again.
Thank you very much. For the benefit of viewers, especially those ones who missed out on the first conversation, my name is Sitati Wasilwa. I am a geopolitical analyst, and I currently work with a Singapore-based geopolitical risk firm. It's called Epoch Assistance. I work as an information services manager for Africa, Middle East, and Europe. And I'm also passionate about different things, including leadership, strategy, history, and many other interesting things, which I hope will come out clearly in this conversation.
Thank you so much, Sitati.
Thanks.
Just as we delve into this matter, in your previous video, and I think we will put the link in the comment section for those who did watch the first section.
Yeah.
Just to bring us up to speed, I remember one thing that stood out for me, the three pillars of leadership. You can expound on that a bit as we delve into this.
Yes, in the previous conversation that we had, I dwelled on three pillars of leadership, which are clearly practiced in Singapore. I remember those pillars which were institutionalized by Singapore's founding father, Lee Kuan Yew. That is meritocracy, pragmatism, and honesty. So meritocracy simply means that the appointing authority, and even entirely in the public sector, or even the private sector, that we appoint, or people are basically appointed based on merit. The right people for the right jobs. Second of all is pragmatism. We need to, all the policies that we formulate and implement have to be based on our social, political, and economic realities. And finally, on honesty, it simply means that we need to be honest and basically try to kill corruption.
Thank you for expanding that. So basically on this discussion, I'd want us to mention and have a discussion and conversation on issues relating to the current governance of the country. Say for instance the floods. We know we have been hit with the floods which the president, I think it's the deputy, who had to tell the Met department to apologize that there is no El Nino. In your view, as a governance expert, do you think our government, do they take the experts seriously? Because you talked about meritocracy, yeah? The Met department warned us about El Nino. We had to tell them to apologize. Then it comes, and for the longest, we didn't even hear the president or any senior government official addressing such issues. What's your take on this?
Well, to react to that, you know, one interesting thing, and also one foolish thing in Kenya, we like playing cheap politics, you know, extremely cheap politics. Why would you parade the Director General of the Kenya Meteorological Department and then tell him to apologize to the country that there will be no El Nino? But anyway, that was last year. Currently, even with the floods which we are experiencing, well, those of us in government would say that it's not a Kenyan phenomenon. Well, in Uganda there are floods, in Tanzania there are floods, and even I think last night I was watching news. In Brazil we have floods, in China they have floods, and yes, in Dubai they had one of the most chaotic floods. I think is it over 75 years or something. In Oman the same thing. Saudi Arabia is also currently raining a little bit heavily. But of course for the regime they'll say, oh, all right, it's climate change. We understand that, but you see, our disaster response and management is a very big problem. And I'll start by giving an example. We have the National Disaster Management Authority, and then under the Ministry of Interior, you can confirm, we have a disaster management unit. Isn't that contradictory? I mean, it's a duplication of roles. If I were the president, because okay, people say, okay, you are criticizing issues here, but can you give solutions? If I were the president, this is what I'll do. I will fold up, I will dissolve, of course with the help of Parliament, the National Disaster Management Authority, and the other disaster management unit under the Ministry of Interior. I'll dissolve this and form one solid, robust disaster response and management agency, which, to add value, I will specifically have it based within the National Youth Service, because I think the National Youth Service has enough personnel. If resources can be fully availed and elite training is provided, then we can scale up the human resource capacity and have extremely elite, highly professional, well-trained disaster management and response personnel at the NYS. Because I think we don't really manage disasters pretty well. And it doesn't just stop with the floods. Talk of when you have drought in this country, it's a mess. Even when you have large-scale terrorist attacks, sometimes, it's a mess. Even responding to accidents along the highways, it's always a very big issue. So I think on floods, the performance is dismal, the response is quite pathetic. You have ongoing strikes, the response is not interesting at all.
Yeah. On the issues of the strike, the doctor strike, the main question is purportedly the employment of interns, the posting of interns, the government reducing their salaries, thus breaching the CBA that was signed in 2017. I have seen the likes of Felix Koskei, how do you call it, the one for Moses Kuria.
Yes.
How does this departments, sorry, the word is trying to escape my mind. How do these ministries, that is, how do these ministries come together in trying to renegotiate the doctor's salary? Or are we trying to see a new form of governance in the Kenyan government? Because this is the first time I'm seeing this.
Yeah, in the previous interview, which Mr. Otieno hosted me, I think viewers, those ones who have not really watched it, you can have the benefit of going back and watching it. One thing which I was clear on is the involvement of the World Bank and the IMF in the economic management of economic policies in Kenya. One of the things when it comes to, when you invite these institutions to your country, one of the things they're going to tell you is you're going to adopt austerity measures as far as spending is concerned. That means cutting salaries and to the extreme measure, even cutting on the number of people employed, the retrenchments and all those kind of things. And they're coming. It's just a matter of time before we have those things in Kenya. But to react to the question of the doctor strike, it is very clear that as per the CBM, and even world over, even when you look at the international labor laws, where have you ever seen that an employee's salary are reduced? It can only happen in Kenya, maybe in other rogue countries across the world. So if interns were earning, or they are these other interns were earning 206,000 or whatever, I also have vested interest in this strike issue, because some people who are related to me, they also right now they need to be on this internship program. Yeah. So it doesn't make sense when you cut people's intern salaries from 206,000 to 70,000.
That's around
yeah, and then you see you've not even included the taxes. So what are these guys going to earn at the end of the day?
Yeah.
30,000 or
And,
20.
and the interns, they say the interns are the ones who run our hospitals.
Yeah, you know, these medical interns, well, the doctors, pharmacists, dentists, they are clearly overburdened with their own internship. And it doesn't stop there. You know, people don't know that we have unemployed medical doctors. After your 1 year internship, being absorbed by the government is not easy. It's not a walk in the park. So we have unemployed doctors, we have unemployed pharmacists, we have unemployed dentists, clinical officers, nurses. In fact, for nurses is worse. And this regime is promoting, what do you call it, brain drain, encouraging nurses to apply for jobs in Saudi Arabia and other countries. You are killing the future of this country.
Yeah.
So I think the using of coercive measures to box the Kenya medical, whatever doctors, that is pharmacists and dentists union, to sign the agreement, it's not in good faith. Those are the issues I believe the union which represents them can amicably solve them. But on salaries, I think they just have to give way and let the doctors have their way.
In your previous video, you mentioned about this. The current government came in trying to create a narrative of the hustlers, and do you think we have the leaders who really care about the hustlers? Because we take, for example, the doctor's strike. The people who are most affected with this strike are the hustlers. I can bet my last one on that.
Of course.
Because there are people who can still afford going to private hospitals. To the politicians, they can even be flown out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So to the common mwananchi, who is not able to, because this is still part of that good health, you know.
Yes.
What are some of the remedies that, you know, as Kenyans, because we have the personal initiative, and then we also have, as we wait for the government to come in, we have the personal initiative. How do we handle such crises when they arise in future or in the current one?
Well, the only best way possible to handle this crisis is to have honest political leaders. That's the only way. I mean, what is the essence of having government if it is not improving the lives of the people? That's a basic, it's a primary function and duty of a government. Always improving the lives of the people. You look at the social conditions, the economic conditions, and the political conditions. Security, healthcare, education, what else? General cost of living. Those are functions of the government, you know. So for us to avoid these embarrassments in future when it comes to strikes, especially on in sensitive sectors like the healthcare, and as you rightly put it, when you take a walk in these public healthcare facilities, you'll be left. You may tear up. You may end up even crying because you have guys, you know, ladies, gentlemen, kids, the old, you know, the elderly, going to access medical care, essential medical care, but they cannot be served simply because someone somewhere has decided that salaries are never going to be honored that they want. So the only way is for us to be honest. Let's have honest political leaders, and I think everything else will run smoothly.
Can we join the doctors on the streets as the normal Kenyans? Do you think that is
prevents them?
That is an option?
It's possible, but you know, Kenya is full of cowards. Kenya is full of cowards. If right now we have an issue that it's affecting, let's say, a significant number of Kenyans, could be cost of living, could be what, any issue, even the ongoing whatever strike by the medical practitioners. Who would dare to go on the street? The other time when Azmi was leading cost of living protests, how many people were seen on the streets? Yeah, only a handful. And how many people are suffering from the price of hunger and the price of fuel? Everywhere. And in fact, people who drive around vehicles. Sometimes you go to the petrol station, you are fueling, you read, the price tag, 200 and something Kenyan shillings. You get discouraged. But would you park your vehicle in your home or where you stay to go to the street? Very few people, have that courage to do that. Even, unless we really have a disastrous thing which annoys people in this country.
Like election results.
Elections are very emotive issues, extremely emotional.
Yeah.
With elections, but even the controversies which came up with maybe 2013, 2017, how many people went to the streets? I think it's only in 2007 that we had so many people in the streets, because that was in, the kind of irregularities which were reported then.
Also glaring.
Yeah, were glaring. Maybe it's only comparable to the time when we were fighting, when chaps were fighting for the reintroduction of multipartyism in 1992. Yeah, we had also a good number of Kenyans taken to the street, but not as high as you would imagine. So this country is full of cowards.
Yeah, so we agree that besides also the government being hesitant, there is no pressure from the hustlers themselves that we need these services, we need the doctors back in the hospital.
The only unfortunate thing is these so-called hustlers. They speak in harsh tones. They never want to be loud. They never want to be heard. They never want to be seen. And most of them are actually embarrassed by the turn of events since this administration took over in August, after the August elections in 2022. Most of them are very disappointed. They will never want to mention that. And they do not want, of course, to be associated with what this regime is doing. But definitely, the weight of the hammer is falling so hard on the so-called hustlers. Yeah. So at the end of the day, it's a lesson for people to learn that when you go to the ballot, you always have the good candidates on the ballot and the bad ones. It's for you to make a decision. Unfortunately, as I alluded a few minutes ago, elections are emotional. And in fact, to think of a voter as a rational human being, it's very hard. Very few voters are rational. They'll go to the ballot and say, okay, this is person X is good, I'm going to vote for him or her. Person B is wrong, I'm never going to vote for them. So it's a lesson which should be picked and learned. Unfortunately, if you study elections over the last 11 years in this country, not just at the top level, even at the the lowest level, at the MCA level, people don't really think appropriately when casting their votes. It's an issue.
The voice of the hustlers, should be other elected leaders. How do you think the government, the parliament, is helping the government, the executive in this moment, to punish, at least the term punish, because when you can't access medical care and you pay tax,
that's
punished.
Absolutely.
So how, in your view, do you think that the parliament is also helping the executive punish the hustlers by keeping mum on the issue of the doctor's strike, among other issues? Because we want to assume that if they were really proactive, they would have helped in the expedition of quick return to work formula for the doctors.
That's a very interesting issue which you have brought up. When you look at the way Parliament has been behaving since we started implementing the current constitutional dispensation, we expected Parliament to be totally independent from the executive, but that's not the case. Unfortunately, the previous regime, the Jubilee regime, which we had for 10 years, 2013, 2022, you tell me how compromised it was when you have the majority side in Parliament siding with the executive, even on very frivolous issues, which, to the detriment of the common person. The same habit has been picked up by the current parliament, where MPs, whether the Senate or National Assembly, are taking instructions from the president himself. And even you remember, was it last year or early this year, the president publicly saying that, I'll be keen enough to watch those members of parliament who are not voting for the housing levies, you remember bill or whatever that is. I think that's it's a bad precedent, which I'm not really sure if we're going to get out of that mess. It's compromise. Unfortunately, the hopes were when this constitution was being put in place, the hopes were that at least parliamentary independence would be maintained. The way the United States, most of this constitutional stuff that we have were picked up from the United States. But you have to appreciate some of those countries were maintaining institutional independence, as far as the arms of government are concerned, but that's not the case. Unfortunately, when you have a majority that is the ruling party, as much as the minority opposition may want to, voice the concerns about the illegality, irregularity, and unconstitutionality of some of those proposed laws, they may not really have a headway and a head start on that, because you have few members of parliament. What are you going to do? So parliament is clearly compromised, and not just on the notion that the majority are having their way. We also have some opposition members of parliament who are clearly compromised. What the hell are you not in the ruling party, and what the hell are you intending to support the government of the day? The administration of the day. It doesn't make sense.
They are going through for development. That is what they say.
Yeah, but you see, it's so dishonest that in this time and age, you can have a member of parliament on a public podium claiming that they have trooped to State House to look for development. That's absolute nonsense. You have the national government disbursed whatever we call it, constituency development fund. What is the function of that?
They can also lobby for some of these.
Absolutely, you have a representative role in parliament. Go and lobby, work in these ministries. Let me give you a very good example. A few people may not really like Babu Wino, the member of parliament for Embakasi East.
East.
But you see, when you go to Embakasi East, the guy has done a very good job. On the ground, roads, he's attempting to tarmac roads and whatnot, very basic things. Have you ever seen him walking to State House?
Has been in the opposition politics.
Absolutely. And a few other members of parliament. You have the money here, do the lobbying, and get focused.
Yeah.
That's what we like.
Yeah, so before we jump into the example you have just talked about, the likes of Babu and the East, you mentioned about the World Bank and the IMF, and it is people's opinion out here that Ruto is a student of Moi, and it is said that the same thing that Ruto is trying to do now, the World Bank and the IMF, is what Moi did at some point, and we had a lot of problems, more or less what we're doing now. So how do we, and I want to bring this to Kibaki, in your opinion as a governance expert, was Kibaki that good, or he just found a very bad economy and so it was very easy? Any small, you see when you find a very dusty place, and just little wiping, everyone will see that, what's your view on that?
You are very right. In fact, one of my greatest friends, he had paid me a visit just a few days ago, and we were having the same conversation, and we mutually agreed that, you see, Kibaki had no any other option but to try and dust up things. You found the economy in a mess. What do? At least to create, and you also have elections in the near future, what do? Naturally, you want to keep things rolling. And I can even promise you, if Uhuru became president in 2002, he would also maybe have done almost the same things that Kibaki did in this country. Yeah, that's the assumption. So, as far as the World Bank and the IMF are concerned, I think when you clearly revisit that sort of history in this country, Moi actually put up a very strong fight against those two institutions. Unlike Ruto himself, who's he's made it clear that this is the way we are going to go as far as foreign policy is concerned, and even economic management. Moi tried to put up a very strong fight against those institutions for various reasons. It may not have been for economic reasons, for political reasons. At the time of, the decade which started from 1990, and when the USSR, the United Socialist Soviet Republics, when it collapsed into 15 other states, including Russia, that meant that the world shifted from a bipolar sort of power arrangement to a unipolar arrangement dominated by the US. So the US embraced that opportunity and using institutions such as the World Bank and the IMF to project their power to the world as a superpower. Then they were saying, okay, you guys are facing debt crisis, because that time countries in Africa, in Latin America, in Asia, they were facing debt crisis. So at the end of the day, they were running to the IMF and the World Bank for assistance. Then they would ask them, okay, you guys want assistance, but there are conditions attached to the loans that we are giving you. At that time, one of the conditions was you must try to sanitize your politics. Part of the reintroduction of multipartyism was out of pressure, external pressure from these institutions, for Moi at least to try and sanitize the politics as a condition for financing his government. That happened. Other things came in. You had funds for social sectors, education, healthcare slashed. What we are also seeing this is also happening right now. You have also exchange rates being, you're told they need to be subjected to the forces of demand and supply. This regime has kind of tried to do that. So there are similarities, but I think where the major difference is, Moi tried to put up a fight. William Ruto has not rejected these institutions. He has openly welcomed them. That's the difference. And even for Moi, it got interesting. Towards, I think, the sunset years of his administration, he set up what was called the Dream Team. He picked Titus Naikuni. This guy was the CEO of CQ. By then, he was the managing director of Magadi Soda Company down here which I think renamed, bought by Tata, right?
Yeah, Tata, yeah.
Down here in Magadi. And then the one-time deputy CEO and then later CEO of the Kenya Commercial Bank, Martin Odoro Otieno, a fantastic gentleman who was also then appointed a PS. I think by then he used to work as the finance director at Barclays. And appointed as the PS in National Treasury for finance, I think. And a few other interesting fellows like the controversial Dr. Eliki, he was also part of that team. I think he was appointed then as the head of public service and so on. So the differences I've mentioned, Moi tried to resist because he knew this thing is going to eat into my political popularity. But for Ruto, everything is working in his favor. Yes. Kufa dereva, kufa makanga. Hata gari inaweza kufa.
Yeah, so now let us look at the model of the Chinese government.
Yes.
And World Bank and IMF. I think Kibaki and Uhuru really worked with the Chinese government in financing most of the projects.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at Moi and Ruto. So, in your view, again, can you have a discussion on maybe what you would recommend to the next government we're assuming that it's made up of you and I.
Mm.
Depending on the model of how these two, let me call them quote unquote funding bodies work, which one would you think is the best model, offers the best solutions to the African problems?
Yeah, first of all, I hope that government comes sooner than later. between the two of us, anyway, on a lighter note.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't really say precisely whom to embrace or whom to leave at this point, because I feel we are lacking that sort of, intellectual independence, which now translates to economic independence and even political independence. We are lacking it as Africa. Where do we really stand? Because Africa, you always have, if you become president, those guys are going to ask you, okay, so who are you, pro-West or pro-East? You have to make it clear. But I think everything, how I look at it, even most of the things how I approach them in my life, is all about pragmatism. Who offers the best deal? The fact of the matter is, ever since China increased its presence in Africa and influence in Africa, especially after the year 2000, we've seen better roads, and generally we've seen some good level of infrastructure, which the West, by then before China became active in Africa, was not able to deliver, and that is a fact, China, of course, has its own issues as far as financing and funding is concerned, but I also think some of those narratives are kind of influenced and dominated by the Western media to project China, all this, you hear debt trap diplomacy. Even at one time we heard that the port of Mombasa has been used as collateral. Exactly.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, China is never going to dictate how to run your country. That is a fact, which pro-Western fellows may find a little bit uncomfortable, but that's the harsh reality, The Western fellows are going to give you the money, and they'll come with all the conditions, do this, change government here, can you cut on taxation? Have you ever had China giving a country money and then they tell you, okay guys, we want you to implement austerity economic policies, cut on public spending and whatnot, which will affect critical social sectors and the general infrastructure development. They don't really care as long as you are paying your dues, and that is something which makes a very big difference. So for me, I wouldn't hesitate to say that if I were the president and I don't have any option, I'd go for whoever is offering me the best deal. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Now, let us jump into the issue of youth and politics.
Yeah.
You mentioned about Babu. I think he's above the youth bracket.
Yeah.
But can still be considered a youthful leader. We have got the likes of Aaron Cheruiyot, Cherargei, and the likes of this former Egerton student leader. I'm forgetting his name, Peter Salasia.
Yes.
Then let us also take a reflection on current university politics. Because if you can, I know, of course, that university politics for so long has been a way to check. They acted at some point as checking the ruling government, especially the Moi government.
Yeah.
Right now, can you say the university politics is dead? And what is your view on the impact it has on the national politics and leadership?
Well, it's not just dead; it's buried, and you can't hope for any resurrection. It's gone. It's gone. So when people die, they rot. Some become good spirits, some bad spirits. but I think as it used to happen until a few years ago.
Around 2016.
Yeah, student union. I mean, this student leaders. These unions. Representing student affairs, used to act as breeding grounds for future political leaders. Unfortunately, that is not the case anymore. and even the current student unions and even those ones which existed maybe 8 years or so ago, they weren't really advocating for, you couldn't really, okay, look at somebody and say, okay, this guy or this gentleman or this lady can make a very good leader in future. No. Because even money politics has now gone into the universities, it has eroded the ethics, it has eroded, the basic thinking that we can vote for this one, looks like a good leader, we can't vote for this one doesn't look like a good leader. So I don't really see any hope on that as far as student leadership is concerned. And definitely what that means is even the feeding system to the country's top leadership or the national politics could be a little bit problematic. Because you can look at some of these current leaders that we have, old or some who are youthful, and say, okay, these guys were also very vocal during their university days. And they have turned out to at least make an impact in Kenya's political leadership, and in different spaces. So that is no longer the case. You're basically having time wasters and pretenders occupying those positions. As long as you have money, you can be voted in. Unfortunately, you even have most of these universities and whatnot, and I think it's now also becoming a problem. The so-called, I don't know if they are the Gen Zs who are also still students in universities or the generation that comes after them, but I think also tribalism is still dominant. But anyway, at the end of the day, tribalism plays a very primary role in our politics as Kenya. But to cut it short, it leaves a lot to be desired as what then will make these universities to be distinct. Unfortunately, most of the universities, even my former university, where I did my undergraduate degree, at some point, after we had vocal student leaders, then the university, kind of, amended, I don't know, the statutes or what, of student leadership. And then they have basically remade the systems in such a way that you have guys who side with or whom the university thinks can make, weak leaders being voted in, no?
Yes. I think for you and the last leader they had was Babu.
Yeah, that's true.
I remember, I think the last very, very serious election was when Babu was running for chair, and there is Jim Akach who was running for Secretary General. Generally, it was like a heated. It was a serious campaign period, which doesn't happen anymore. And so it means in the next 10, 15 years, because we have the likes of James Agri Orengo, the likes of Kamando Kabando, Babu, Edith Mirigi, Anyan. Those were student leaders, and they grew to become national leaders. And so, is it a worrying trend for our next generation of leaders, or do we expect Mugabe's in our generation?
Well, and unless we have an evolution in a way that we can have other leaders emerging beyond the usual universities and college spaces, The other day I was having a very interesting conversation again with one of my greatest friends, and we were basically reflecting on the future of Kenya's leadership. And we agreed that we as Kenya, in general, we don't invest so much in leadership. We don't. We kind of just believe, okay, it's either we have a natural leader coming up, or we just have these other pretenders who want to publicize themselves as leaders. These universities can go over and beyond, and even political parties have a role to play. I know political parties and other foreign and governmental organizations have arrangements where people are kind of trained, mentored on leadership, but you see, that's not enough. Yeah, the disorganization that we have in all the parties, political parties in this country, it basically tells you that Kenya's leadership, it's not really, you can't really have an optimistic kind of view of Kenya's future political leadership. You look at other countries, I'll give you a very good example. In advanced democracies like in Britain or in the United States, Denmark, Germany. I was also surprised down here in South Africa. Have you ever seen, I mean, these parties have programs where they nurture the young, they have youthful programs. Yes, our parties here in Kenya have those youth wings, I don't know what, but who are occupying those positions? They're just quacks and frauds. Yeah? And in these other countries, these other parties also go to an extent of having internship programs for students of political science, government, history and whatnot, specified, well outlined. But in Kenya here, you may only just go to intern there because you need to finish your course program at the university level. But you don't have really well-guided philosophies which distinguish what this party stands for, and especially when it comes to youth mentorship and the acceleration of youthful leadership. So we may not really focus on universities as such. Still, they play a critical role, but I think political parties still have a role to play. And other people across the board, even communities can start their own initiatives, establish leadership initiatives and institutions. Some of us, maybe in the near future, we may have to establish leadership institutes or institutions where we can distinctly nurture, mentor, and hone leaders for the future. Yeah.
Yeah. And to that now, let us move slightly higher from those who are trying to get into leadership. In the previous election, UDA boasts of very youthful leadership. Actually, the youngest leadership.
Yeah, true.
And they come from Tunawaitanga, from the mountains and the Rift Valley.
Absolutely.
If you hear some of the utterances that they make, the likes of Cheruiyot, there is this, Elgeyo Marakwet, women leader. Do you see any hope in our current crop of youthful leaders?
There is no hope. I'm extremely pessimistic on that front. See, you'd expect any youthful person to think differently from the old, because the assumption is the youthful fellows are more exposed, and then they are more dynamic in the way they think, and generally they embrace different perspectives of the world. But that is not the case with, unfortunately, most of the youthful leaders that we have. Some of whom well elected, some of them known to me, others whom I schooled with them in different capacities. It leaves a lot to be desired as far as the future of this country is concerned with political leadership. If you cannot think independently, that already casts you off as as a leader who is reliable, because independent thinking is extremely important. You have guys here basically just throwing careless statements based on tribalism, which is totally negative and whatnot. Guys who can basically think, okay, this economic policy doesn't make sense, but because you want to appear popular or to appease your master,
tribal king.
yeah, then you end up supporting whatever wrong cause that is. So as far as that is concerned, I'm not really hopeful on that, and I think we must be very worried as a country, because most of these guys are going to be there for quite a long time.
For quite a long time, because you see, when someone is 32 and he's already in parliament.
Yes, where do you expect that person to go? And politics is people talk about addictions, but I don't think people understand how addictive politics can be. Yeah.
Now, as we do towards the close of this discussion, we have got, and I'd want us to confidently discuss on this, the likes of or gender prof.
Mm.
I have seen some of his videos dishing out money and all that. Now, does it also mean that when you get into politics, you lose part of your brains? In your view?
Yeah, in this country, I think once you become a politician, somehow you become very stupid. Yeah. But now, I don't know how, I don't know to what extent or what mitigation measure you're going to adopt as a country to reverse that negative trend. Because you can imagine that, anyway, I usually never want professors to be in politics. Because, I mean, professors need to be teaching at universities.
Doing research.
Yeah, and doing research.
Is it about money?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you look at the salaries of Kenyan professors here, 200 and 1,000. Too little money for a whole, you know, before you become a professor, it's a quite intense undertaking, you know. So, if you have professors, he's not even the only one. Even Sitati at one time when he was the vice president, between Sitati and Moi, who was naturally brilliant than the other?
we have one who was a P1 teacher.
Yeah, and even just generally thinking, because if you meet a brilliant person, you don't need 10 minutes to be convinced that someone is brilliant or daft, you know. Sitoti naturally was a brilliant man, but he was reduced to a sycophant. For many of those years that he served under Moi, and many other people. Even in this regime, you have people who are highly learned, but you see, you have to toe the line, which is something that's not really impressive. So, that goes back to our moral system and values. What do we value as a country? And even in the previous video, our discussion with Mr. Otieno is that political leaders do not live in isolation. It's a whole system. It's an entire system. It's a macro system that encompasses this. Other people, the lowest, the lowest levels of society. Us, you know, all of us. So it doesn't work in isolation. If a politician moves around dishing money, that means we as the people, we have accepted that culture to prevail. Why are we taking that money? Because we may as well refuse that. But I think...
we're hungry.
Well, people are frustrated and, you know, it's human nature. If we like free things. We like free things. That's why when you see all these lorries maybe transporting soda, bread, maize flour, when they overturn on the roads, what do people do?
Yeah.
Even petrol. So the bottom line is we need a cultural shift, how we think, how we look at things. Politicians bribing the citizens. And that is why these guys go in offices and they steal as much as they want. You know, also running political campaigns is very expensive in Kenya.
Thank you so much. As we near the close, I want you to maybe take a minute or two to give your perspective on the future of the Kenyan politics as we do to the close.
I think as far as the future of Kenyan politics is concerned, there are a few issues which I want to mention probably in less than a minute. One thing, the youth need to wake up from slumber and decide to take matters in their own hand. You can elect a youthful leader, but that doesn't mean that the society is going to change automatically. What we need is the youth need to be well informed. The youth need to conclusively and fully participate in political processes, directly or indirectly. You may not like politics, but I think at the end of the day you have a duty and role to play as a Kenyan citizen, and that is guided and provided in the Constitution of the Republic. To add to that, you cannot sit around as a youthful person and say, okay, politics is not my thing, and politicians are never going to help me. That business which you run as a young person, those ambitions that you have, one day you will wake up employed, the next minute you wake up fired because the government has decided to implement certain policies which you may not like. So it's our duty as the young people to take issues in our hands. Another thing, as far as Kenyan politics is concerned for the future, myself, I'm less optimistic, I'm more pessimistic. If we are never going to change our values and embrace a new value system, have a new cultural system in place, which we will value meritocracy and competence, and also we will endeavor to do away with corruption, which has been a nagging issue since independence. And finally, as far as the future of this country is concerned, we need to emphasize on genuine leadership. Leadership is, the talent for leadership is very scarce in this country. It is time for political parties, non-governmental organizations, and other well-motivated and well-to-do individuals, and even communities at the grassroots level, to organize themselves, identify leaders, promote meritocracy, and nurture them for the better of this country. That's all I can say about Kenya's future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sitati, for your time, and thanks so much our viewers for having gone with us through the whole discussion. We want to welcome you again and subscribe so that you can be notified. Turn on the notification bell, and also join us on our socials. Go to X and follow the page, The Point. You can give your comments and discussions, and who you will also want us to host, and we'll try and reach out to them. Thank you so much. Until another time, it has been my pleasure hosting you. I am Felix. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Felix.